forget what is the work that goes into this finding this aha moments. So the main takeaway that I'd like all of you to take from this small speech of this is that aha moments don't come easy. They come, and they're often rare, but they're worthwhile. And I'd encourage all of you to use this forum as a vehicle to exercise all those critical questions that you've been asking so far, to think about them, to discover those aha moments, and please share it with us whenever you come to those aha moments, because they're truly something to be celebrated, something to be shared, and have and shared with everybody else. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's try to, since I'm the Toastmaster today, let's try and fill up some roles. I do need a volunteer for an aha counter.
Oh, yeah. I'll do it.
Who's the oh? Thank you, Jose. So let me just put that. Jose will be our aha counter. And our ballot counter is going to be Survey Monkey. We need a volunteer for grammarian. Okay, I'll volunteer as grammarian. Do we have a joke master? Any volunteers? Has anybody heard a good joke?
I have a good joke. We'll see whether, but if someone else would be joke master, that's fine too.
Okay, so tentatively we'll put Wei Ming as joke master, and the timer. Wei-Ming, do you still have your?
Yes, I have my timer up. So if Mitsu doesn't show up, then I can be timer.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just pull that out. Video master is taken care of to the magic of Zoom, and we do need a word master. Oh, okay. So the word, I didn't think of the word, but I will be word master in addition to being grammarian. And the word of the day is, in light of being aha moments, Eureka. So, so I'll put on the definition for Eureka in a few seconds. And that's about it. I think we've filled up all the roles in case I've missed anyone. And at this point, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the day. Sorry, I've got the agenda on my second screen. Our first speaker today is going to be Georgie. Georgie has been a longtime member of our club. She has spoken extensively about a number of topics, and it's always, and her speeches are very insightful and eye-opening in terms of what you can, with ideas to think about. Today, she's going to be speaking about The Disappearing Spoon, which is a very intriguing title. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Georgie.
Can I ask how long this speech is?
It's 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. So I am sharing my screen. Can anyone see it?
Yes.
And I assume you can hear me in theory? Okay. Okay. Right. Today, I'd like to continue on a topic that I talked about 2 weeks ago, which is about continuing education. Specifically, I spoke about online education. One of the things I mentioned that we have the ability to do now is that we have tons of information coming to us in all different formats. One that I use quite a bit myself are audiobooks. I just completed a very interesting audiobook called The Disappearing Spoon and Other True Tales of Madness, Love, and the History of the World from the Periodic Table of the Elements by Sam Keane. The book itself takes about 12 and a half hours to get through, but is a really great introduction to chemistry and physics, especially for the lay audience. It's filled with great story, breezy gossips, and lots of clever anecdotes. And the way it's done is quite clever. It goes through each of the individual items, the individual elements of the periodic table, and talks about a little bit about its history, the people who discovered it, maybe some of the ways in which it's actually been used by humans over time, all sorts of different things. What I really liked about it was it is written for the lay public. So for rigorous science, that isn't quite what you're going to find. Like I said, it's a nice breezy intro for this. But what I thought was better was that using the elements, it talked about all sorts of different aspects of science and the human condition, including everything from the formation of the universe to myths, to politics, to war, to money. I even liked the way it talked about the people, the scientists, and their scientific careers and sort of the things that they had to go through. Now, the title of the book itself is a little confusing. The Disappearing Spoon. It actually references a prank that chemistry students have been playing on each other for ages. Element number 31 is gallium. Gallium is a metal, and it looks like stainless steel, but it is a very unusual metal. It is a solid at room temperature, but it melts at 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you hold it in your hand, you can bend it. If you put it into a beaker of warm liquid or maybe a hot cup of tea, it completely dissolves into the liquid. Once again, this is a little prank that chemistry students have been playing on one another forever. One of the things that I liked about it was that especially it focused a lot on people and talked about some of the individual challenges that these individual people went through with their careers. Now, we're nowadays encouraging girls to get into STEM, and I like the way it focused on women and their contributions. For example, everyone's heard of Marie Curie. She is a very amazing scientist in that she won the Nobel Prize twice. But ironically, one of the challenges she actually faced was from not just her male colleagues, but from their wives as well. She had a little trick in which she would carry around test tubes filled with some of this radioactive material she discovered that would glow in the dark. But the best way to see it would be in a very dark, low light area, such as a closet. So she would often slip into closets with some of her colleagues, which their wives did not appreciate in the least. Now, another woman that we don't really think about nowadays is Dr. Maria Gupta-Marie. Now, she won the Nobel Prize in 1963 for her discovery that electrons pair together around the nucleus. But what was interesting is even though she won in 1963, she still had a lot of difficulty getting her career off the ground, partially because she was a woman. For example, you can see on the screen that she lived in San Diego, was teaching as a professor at the university there when she did win the Nobel Prize, and the local newspaper published the news about her winning it as basically local mother wins Nobel Prize, which I can't really imagine anybody publishing anything that said, for example, local father wins Nobel Prize. It's so strange. I can't even today understand quite why they phrased it this way. Now, the thing I liked was that it brought in lots of different aspects, and I'm bringing up this next couple of stories to talk about, once again, how online education is really changing the world. The gentleman you see on the screen is David Hahn. He's known as the radioactive Boy Scout. Back when he was 14 years old, he studied to get an atomic energy merit badge, which basically involved researching radioactivity and writing some papers. Nothing to do with actual radioactive material, but he got really interested in it. At the age of 17, he decided he wanted to build a breeder reactor in his mother's backyard shed. He didn't succeed in it, but he got kind of close. He created a neutron source. This is not able to create as much fissionable material as it uses, but it's still very dangerous. He may have been exposed to a lot of radiation. We really don't know because he'd never allowed himself to get tested. As you can see from his photo on the left-hand side of the screen, he may have suffered from radiation sickness. He might have also he got into drugs, unfortunately. His education really never panned out for him. He never really was able to get much information about radioactivity because it wasn't available online yet. It was still too early. The internet really wasn't around yet. He didn't have any scientific mentors to help him. Although his parents were trying to supportive of him, he kind of did things on his own, and that's kind of the reason that his mother's backyard got declared a Superfund cleanup site by the EPA. Now, in contrast, to kind of show how with online education things have changed so much, this young man is Taylor Wilson Halifax. He got interested in atomic physics at the age of 10 years old. His parents, once again, didn't have a science background, but they were very supportive, and through things like the internet, they were able to find things like the Davidson's Academy. It's a high school for the top achieving students in the world. You can even register and go to the school online. He worked with professors and researchers at a lab at the University of Nevada in Reno. And in 2008, he became the youngest person to produce nuclear fusion at the age of 14 years old. So once again, kind of tying it in with the concept that now with the internet and online education, we have access to huge amounts of materials and resources we never did before. I would encourage you all to look around for more things you can study and broaden your interest. And with that, I turn back control to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Georgie. That was a spectacular speech and a great survey of the disappearing spoon of the book, and ties in really well with the opportunities that online education can give us. Could you please take a few minutes, a minute or two, to write some comments for Georgie?
And I believe we have another guest joining in, Tina, or Tina Boo. Good morning, Tina. I don't know if you can hear us.
Hi, sorry, I was invited by a friend. I'm still figuring out what's going on.
Awesome, welcome in. We just wanted to acknowledge that you're on and you can hear us. We can't see you, but good morning, welcome into our Toastmaster meeting. We are just in between speakers, so.
This is a little early for me, but yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay, so our next speaker is Wai-Ming. Wai-Ming Mak has been a longtime speaker. He has a goal to speak every day, every week. I'm sure he speaks every day, but his goal is to speak or make a speech every week on any topic that catches his fancy. He is a great enthusiast of online education, in line with what Georgie was talking about, has taken multiple courses, is a great motivational resource to everyone in the club. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Wai-Ming Mak, who will be speaking about the comet that's in the news these days. Wai-Ming?
Good morning, fellow Toastmaster, most welcome guests. So today I'm going to talk about the comet that's coming about right now. And if you look up in the sky, and I'll talk about how, when, and where you're going to be looking at in the sky, you could potentially see this something like this, where there's this streak in the middle of the picture, and that streak is that particular comet called Neowise. So today I'm going to be talking about the comet, what some of the characteristics are, why it appears in the position that it is in the sky, and when we could see it. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So the one thing that's very interesting is this is a really, really rare event, in that this comet, supposedly based on the orbit that is on, came around 4,500 years ago. That's the Bronze Age. And if you don't see it now, you can't see it, and no one could see it until maybe 6,800 years from now. That's almost 300 generations from now. So it's your children's 300 times before you could see it. So it's really rare. Now, comets are not rare. So you can, next year or maybe even this year, you can see another comet. But this particular one will not come again for a long time. So it's rare in that sense. Now, how big is this comet? So if you were to go to plug and play in the middle, and that's the red dot in the middle, and then have a big ice cream scoop, the big ice cream scoop that can scoop down and scoop from the edge of the bay with the center being the plug and play, and scoop that part of the Earth up. That's about the size of that comet, 3 miles across. And the way it was seen in space is that it looks like that. It has this what I talked about just now, the 3-mile diameter of that nucleus is right at the tip of this picture, of this bright area. And then the rest of it are the tails. And the tails are very long. It could be as long as 90,000 miles long. And 90,000 miles is sort of like 1/3 of the distance from the Earth to the moon. And why? And in fact, there are 2 tails. And why is that? Because as the comet goes near the sun, the solar wind, which is the heat and the radiation that's coming from the sun, which goes about almost 1 million miles per hour, comes at that comet, and it blows the dust, the stuff that's on the comet out into that 90,000-mile tail. That's the dust tail. But then it could also ionize. That means it charges up some of the stuff in the comet and have a separate trail that has iron, that is electrically charged iron. So the comet looks like that. And when you look at the tail actually doesn't go in the direction or the behind the comet where it's travel, but rather it goes with how the wind comes at it. And this is like when you walk down the aisle and you have a scarf on your neck, the wind blows the scarf a different direction than necessarily the direction you're walking. So that's how the tail works. And now I'm going to show a picture of the orbit of this comet. And the orbit of the comet is this thing that came from the left-hand side, and it's a very elongated ellipse. It's a very sharp ellipse. That's why it takes so long for it to come back the next time. And it goes at the sun and then comes out of the sun. And the third circle is where Earth is. And it just happens that Earth and that comet will meet. And when you look at the speed of these guys, the comet goes around 100,000 miles per hour. And Earth is moving around the sun at 67,000 miles, 2/3 of the speed of that comet. And so when they move in the sky at night, when you could see it, it goes in the comet appear on the sky in different position every day. So this is a complicated chart, but on the left-hand side is when you could see it after sunset, and those are the dates when you could see it, July 15th, July 20th, and so on at night. And then on the right is when you see it in the morning, and a different position. That's because the way the comet travels and the Earth travels, how it appears in the sky in different positions. Now, when during the day we cannot see the comet, although the comet is up in the sky, like the moon is up in the sky, but the sun is so bright that it's next to the sun, but you can't see it. So the only time you can see it is right before sunrise. It just happened the comet comes before the sun comes up, and the Earth sort of hides all the light from the sun so you can see it. And then after sunset, you could see it when the sun goes down and it's behind the Earth, and then you could see the comet. Before it disappeared, it followed the sun because it's next to the sun. So as the sun goes around the Earth, or we rotate, the Earth rotates around the sun, we don't see the sun anymore, and the comet we don't see either. So it's very brief, like within an hour it'll go away. So you only have an hour to see the stuff before sunrise and after sunrise. So to summarize, this is a really rare event, and certainly you can see it with the naked eye. That's the biggest deal, is it is so bright that you can see it with the naked eye. There are two tails, although you cannot see the tails unless you really have a big binocular or telescope. And it appears in different positions on each day. So you have to really get a chart and find out where things are. And you can only see it before sunrise. That's like 4:30 to 5:30 or so. And after sunset, around 8:30 to 10 o'clock. And it's very brief. And it moves even during those times. So you have to track it. So this is the chart. And I can forward that if you're interested. This is when you could see it. This is the highest point in the sky on, let's say, on the July 20th is highest in the sky around 20 degrees above the horizon, around northwest direction and so on. So that's how you're gonna see it, as long as there's no cloud and so on. So consider something like this. You can see it, and then you can tell your children whenever that you have seen this, and they won't see it until their children's children 300 times. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay. Thank you, Wei-Ming. That was a great speech. I'd really appreciate it if you can forward this slide, your last slide about the positions of the comet, that we can take a look at it, and maybe hopefully I see it. Just to recount, I remember back in '86 or '87, I think I was 10 or 11. That was the last time Halley's Comet actually showed up. And as some of you may know, Halley's Comet shows up every 76 years. And that was, I still remember that being a seminal event when that was happening. And I think Time and Newsweek had articles about that. And I kind of devoured those articles, trying to understand what those, what comets were and how they behaved. Anyway, please take a few minutes to give some feedback to Wei-Ming. Okay. Our third speaker is our guest speaker this week. Martin will be speaking about a technical topic about how to trust a cheap sensor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Martin.
So thank you for introduction. I just try to share my presentation.
Sometimes the window gets lost.
Can you see the presentation or not?
Cannot. Yeah.
Okay, because it's asking me to quit the Zoom.
Oh.
So
Do you have it? Are you able to export it into a PDF and then present it that way? Sometimes if it like Keynote or PowerPoint doesn't work, sometimes that's a good workaround.
Are you on a Mac? Do you need
Yes, I am.
to get permission to video to record the screen? Oh,
Other?
never mind.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. So, hi, I'm Martin Sidor, and I would like to show you something from my lab. So, sorry, it's not this one. I'm sorry for technical troubles. Can you tell me how you can just, good, thank you. So, I would like to show you something from my lab. So I have let me start with the story. I have a friend who is usually asking me to make some new product or something. He wants to measure some specific value, for example, pressure in the water line. So, but his next question is, can we do it cheap, or we have to buy the new some expensive sensors for it? And of course, the first thing what he does is that he is buying the cheaper sensor. It's his first experience, and he is expecting that he will get the exact value what is in the water line from the pressure. So he's expecting, for example, 60 psi, but in real he gets something like this. It's changing the value every time, and he is not able to get accurate numbers. It's very different, so it makes him cry. And he is talking about it with me, and I just went deeper in the problem, and I was wondering what we have in the cascade. So what kind of devices we have to discover. So we have a power source. You can see on each power source different output voltage, like 5.1, 5.0, 5.2, or something like that. The next thing is the sensor. It has a ADC converter. You need it for. The development board has the ADC converter. You need it for measurement of the value of the voltage, and it has a specific range for 0 to 4095 points. And so you have a datasheet from the sensor. Everything looks great. Everything looks that there is no problem. So why it doesn't work? So I made a first measurement. There is a straight line. It looks like sensor is linear, but I accidentally replace the power source, and I get different numbers. And so I tried to replace it with the also different, like with the higher voltage right now, and I get these numbers. So you can see that there is a specific shape where we have to find the value for the specific specific pressure. And so I made up more measurements. This is from 400 measurements on one sensor. And I started at 2.7 volts, went to 5.3 because the sensor didn't work out of this range. And at the first time, you can see the shape itself. And here is one value what I get from the output. It was like 1.7 volts, and if you have 5.3 volts as an input, you can read 60 psi. But if you have a drop-down voltage or some broken bad power supply, you will have with the same value just 150 psi. So it looks like it works like weather in the mountains. So it's up and down. The next thing is ADC converter itself. It should be straight, but it isn't. It's not linear. So in this case, we have to also make some polynomial regression to fix this problem. So we have to implement everything in the software. We have to read all data. We have to find the exact numbers, where is the range of the sensor, and find the polynomial function for the ADC converter. And we need to know what is the real output from the power source. So after this experience, we made some implementation, and I presented to my friend everything, and we checked the if is it accurate enough. And so we had a water line with 50 psi, and we measured 50 psi plus minus 1%. So he was satisfied, and thank you for presentation.
Hello, you're muted.
Sorry about that. At this point, I'd like to turn over control to our general evaluator. Did we have a volunteer for general evaluator? I guess not.
I can be generally.
Okay, so Georgie, could you please, I'd like to control, revert, turn
I'll
over
handle
control.
it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. So with that, I will now be asking our evaluators to evaluate our speakers. And unfortunately, I don't know who our evaluators are. Maybe I get a little hint on that, perhaps.
Our first evaluator is
Jose.
Jose.
Please give an evaluation of my speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, General Evaluator. I will be evaluating you, your speech. First of all, when I saw the presentation, the face of the presentation, which is the disappearing spoon, and this is my impression of it, it was very intriguing. I was very curious because the title itself has a little bit of mystery on it. Although later on, I kind of wanted to understand why it was titled that way. In that it said disappearing spoon, I kind of wanted to find out what it was. And then you went to a lot of very interesting tales about a lot of the learnings in regards to science. Especially, there's actually I counted. Oh yeah, I had about four tales. Something about gallium, how it melts. Henrika, the radioactive Boy Scout, how he collected radioactive materials. Taylor Wilson, how he created a fusion machine. Madame Curie, and how she endured being a female, and how she overcome it. I liked it in that the core message of what you were saying was that online education is very essential, very important, and you learn a lot from it. Although I did wanted to maybe expand a little bit more on what other points you wanted to bring up. There was more of an inference when you said those tales, and maybe a few more words in regards to what the audience can learn from it. But they were very intriguing, and I liked it because there is an inherent message in all of them, maybe an expansion of all of them. As far as the presentation, I like the way you had a voice inflection. You have a natural voice inflection when you present, and I like it. You also have a very natural way of making your gestures. I notice you use one hand, maybe a little bit on the other hand too. That gives it a little bit more balance. There is like I said, there is changes in your tone. I like it, and I like your cadence. A little bit more emphasis on some of the other key points. Maybe a little bit more, just a little more inflection in your voice, and when you have a key point. But overall, it was a very good presentation. I liked it, and there's a few. It was really a very very fruitful and very insightful 5 minutes in just the way you presented the four tales, and I understood the four tales very very well, and the way it's logically presented. Uh, it was very very well presented. So overall, a very good speech. I look forward to more tales from you and more insights in regards to your range of topics, which is online education and learning a lot of things in regards to business. Thank you very much.
Yay. All right, thank you very much, Jose. Now, going on to our next evaluator, I have Hannah down as our second evaluator. Hannah, can you please give us an evaluation of Wah Ming's speech?
Absolutely. And I'm sure Wai Ming saw a third speaker slot and had an aha moment and said, Eureka, here is my opportunity to tell you about this comment that is going on. Now, I personally have heard of the comment, but I did not know these kind of statistics, or I did not know any of this kind of data, and then how rare it is as well. So I also did not know generationally how many hundreds of generations next will see this comment. So thank you very much for Wai Ming. It was a very relevant, very enlightening speech, also very educational. I liked your use of statistics where you did have a lot of visual descriptions and a lot of units of measurement, but you also very boiled it down and made it very simple for anybody to understand, kind of like the ice cream scoop and the radius of the comet. That really just gave me a visual of somebody scooping up ice cream and how that works. So that was a really good example that you used. It was also very relevant. We're hearing the stories on the news, and some people are talking about it online. So a very relevant speech to this day and today and this day and age and this month. Very timely as well. So very, very on point for time. In terms of your clarity of your speech is very clear. You're very articulate. You did also use energy and enthusiasm and certain kind of inflections. So there's certain slides where people were really just drawn in because how excited you got about this topic. So I thought you used that very well. In terms of, I would say just the only two things I can say for feedback is you were notoriously well known for your hand gestures. In person. So in person, if you've ever seen Wai Ming speak, he uses some of the best hand gestures, and he always reminds me that that's something I need to get better at. But I would like to see, I know you're speaking into the microphone and stuff, but like just your use of the whole space that you have in your Zoom window in terms of your hand gestures. So if you did something that like that, I would really just be very more drawn into your topic. The other point of feedback I would just say is the relevancy was definitely there. I'd like to just hear more about like why you found this topic so interesting and why you wanted to research it so more. Just a little bit more about that why. Other than that, overall, very relevant speech, Wai Ming, and thank you for teaching us more about the comment.
Thank you, Hannah. Hannah. Don't know why I have problems with that name. Okay, and unfortunately, I do not know who our third evaluator is, okay, Tao, could you please give an evaluation of Martin's speech? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. General Evaluator. So I will be evaluating Martin's speech. So first I want to congratulate Martin for giving a relatively challenging subject in a very somewhat understandable manner, and especially considering that he had to recover from technical difficulty. And again, knowing from firsthand experience, it's very challenging and unnerving to run into technical difficulty at the very beginning. So great job recovering it. You also did a great job laying out the storyboard. Like the visual effect is very clean, not clutter of bullet points. So very much appreciate the clarity, the simplicity of the presentation. Although the one small comment is that it might be helpful to put each of the storyboard as its own slide. By the end of it, looking like 20-something avatars on the same page just looks a little crowded. Now, there are two feedbacks I want to talk about. The first feedback has to do with explaining the intention of your speech at the beginning. You kind of started a speech by saying, I want to show you something from your lab. So I mean, it is a good way to pique audience interest, but I kind of wish I know more to know what to expect. Is that something I find exciting? What can I do with this information? So if you can set up the audience expectation, they will be more engaged. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, this being a technical subject, there are some matters that you probably have to be aware of. I happen to be an electrical engineer myself, so I understand very well what you're talking about, but I can totally see a good part of the audience getting lost when you start explaining PSI or ADC converters, very technical terms like this. So I think that the one feedback I can give is like just similar to what Wai Ming did, right? You really need to boil down some of the terms to relatable vocabularies that audience can follow. Right? Like PSI, for instance, is just a high pressure, low pressure, right? That's an easy way. Just a simple change of term might just make it a lot easier to understand. At the same time, with technical subject, the other thing that I always find myself struggling with is understanding what to put into presentation, because not every single detail needs to be shared. Now, if you're doing a conference paper presentation, yes, you have to, it's like a proof. You have to show every single part of your work. But in a technical speech, in a speech to like a general audience, I think you need to be more selective in terms of what to put in there, what's not put in there. Some part of the detail might be very useful to your conclusion, but some of it might not add much value. So those things I might suggest just leave it out, just because it will just confuse the audience if you put in too much technical details. But again, overall, very good delivery on a very challenging subject, and I look forward to more visit from you. Thank you. Back to Ms. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So am I to continue with the duty master? Is that how we do things?
No, I think the next thing is
right, table topics.
Table
right.
topics, yeah. So you can control return control
So
to me.
I return control to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, General Evaluator. And now the next session, and the one that is a lot of fun, is our table topic session, where we have a series of impromptu speeches where the table topics will select a random topic, but somehow maybe pertaining to the topic, to the theme of the day, and ask questions randomly to any of you. So let me have the honor of introducing our table topics master, Wai Ming Mak.
Good morning, fellow Toastmaster, most welcome guests. So I'm going to be Table Topics Master. Today's theme is aha moment or Eureka moment. I was thinking initially maybe it should be an ah moment, in which case I get asked a different type of question. But in any case, I'm going to ask Gautam. Gautam, have you ever had a aha moment, and maybe describe it for us?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So I had a lot of moments, such moments like that. I can't think of anything specific, but I can see a recent one. So we had an office party and we had some kind of casino style. So got a free tickets and free dummy cash. So I played around with $1,000. on a Silhouette wheel. So I don't know, we had a lot of options, and I'm very much affectionate to that game, and I was playing, and my money was going up and immediately it going down. I was trying to lose as much as I can, but keep on piling. I was like, what's going on? Then there was a maximum limit, like $5,000 of dummy money. Only the person can hold, but I had like around $10,000. Then I gave it 5,000 to my friends. We didn't know at the end of the day there is like a free wheel where we will buy free tickets and put it into some prize drawing. Then both my friend and myself got a prize. He got a HoloLens and I got a AirPod. I was like, what? Aha, we got a prize. Yeah, that's it.
That's great. Thank you. So one of the things with aha moment is Arun was saying is you can get to a solution to some problem that might be difficult. So Shandana, can you describe to us maybe arriving at a solution? Do you arrive it by sleeping, or do you arrive it by talking to someone? Do you arrive it some other way? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Table Topics Master. I usually find that I prefer to sleep over things, and that's when I get my aha moments or like fixes to my solution. But I think so I don't remember a specific, I think there are so many examples that I don't have a specific example handy, but I do remember this really nice story back in my 9th grade where I had my final exams going on, and I, for some reason, misremembered the date of my final exam, and I thought for the exam would actually be on something like a 17th, which is Wednesday or Tuesday, but it turned out that the exam was the next day, which was Monday. And I got to know this at 9 p.m. on Sunday night when my friend called me to clarify some doubts. So I had about from 9 p.m. to, like, say, next day morning, 8 a.m. to prepare. And I kind of completely freaked out. And then I went to the exam hall and I started looking at the question paper and I completely freaked out because I didn't know what I was, I kept thinking that, okay, I don't know the answer to this next one. I don't know the answer to this. So finally I was like, okay, let me calm down, take one question and start off kind of just, take a deep breath and start looking at the problem. And I had like answers coming in one by one. And I actually got like full marks for my term paper that year. So that was like a nice story for me that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to remind everyone the word of the day is Eureka. So I'm gonna just go to some of the speakers that's spoken less. And I'm gonna start with Tao. Tao, sometimes solving a problem, you just follow a certain method and just follow the techniques and so on, or whatever the steps, and then eventually you get to the solution. However, sometimes that might not get you the right solution. So could you describe a situation like that?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I can try. In my former life as a software engineer, a big part of my job is debugging, which is actually common to all engineers. It's basically figuring out what went wrong with the system. Now, the typical way to debug is you literally just go through the code, right? Like you basically go step it through one line at a time. You try to see, okay, is this incorrect? Is this incorrect? Is this incorrect? But a lot of times that method doesn't quite work, especially when the amount of software gets complicated enough. That kind of linear solving just doesn't work. Then you can start, and then, so that's kind of the intuitive way of debugging. What makes it, if you really, so what I realized then, there's two other ways of debugging. The second way is like the formal method, where you literally lay out the code and you start asking questions of like, what can things go wrong? And then, for instance, like if you're debugging a train, right? Like the door shouldn't open in the middle of the train ride. So if you're trying to debug why the door is opening, you start asking every single way the doors can open. And then you go reason through every single scenario that it cannot possibly happen. So this is what I call like a formal way of debugging, where you literally go down like every single theoretical possibility and just like methodically rule it out. It's extremely time consuming, but it usually gets you the right result. The third way, which is actually my favorite, is actually just controlled experiment. I think that's actually honestly, I think the most, depending on the type of problem, I think in some cases that might be the best way to go, where you literally like, again, you still have to have a list of intuitions in terms of where to go, but you just keep running experiments. And most of the time, you will be able to find an issue before you run out of possibilities. But there are occasions where you basically think there's nothing wrong with the system, there's no possible way for it to go wrong, but it's still not working. So those are the moments you truly need the Eureka moments. All right, back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master.
Thank you, Tao. So I'm going to ask Jose. Jose, so have you arrived at a difficult problem by sleeping or by talking to someone or something else?
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster, for calling me on this one. I have an intriguing problem I had related to work. This one's a robotic interface that I worked with. And this, a lot of times when I fix something, it's by research. I just knew. Sometimes it's by procedure. I follow a certain procedure. But this was very unique in that I even ask our home, some of my regular procedure would be to ask home office, and maybe there was a Eureka moment there, and our home office, our home engineers will figure it out for me. But this was unique in that it wasn't like that. It was, so I kept on going through all the different settings of the robot, and I couldn't figure it out until somebody, one of the technicians, the customers, finally admitted he did something different. That this particular model had a different setting and a different interface. Basically, there's a different mechanical shim that has to be put in it, and he finally told me, but he did something wrong. So, well, the Eureka, the lesson I learned from that is sometimes these troubleshooting problems is more like being an investigator, like a crime investigator. Sometimes there's somebody in the background involved that did something different that ruined it for you. So, a Eureka moment, that's something you learn from it. So, thank you very much. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Haroon if that's okay. So Haroon, sometimes to solve a problem, one technique that some people use in computers is to introduce uncertainty. Just throw something else, try something random, and then maybe you can, have you ever done that?
Well, thank you, Table Topics Master. This is an interesting question, and something that I have actually, this is actually a formal technique in computer science about using randomized experiments to it. And it's a technique that's often used in a functional style of programming. In fact, I have actually utilized that quite a lot in my software engineering project. As you may know, it's not, I may not have mentioned this before, but I'm a big fan of functional programming and using functional programming techniques. And one of the big ways to test functional programs is to do property-based testing. The nice thing about property-based testing is that you actually generate these random inputs to a function. And the ideal thing is that if you define your functions in such a way, you can actually arrive at those particular cases far more quickly than you would do with careful thought and analysis. So the kind of thing that Tao mentioned about using formal verification, about trying to figure out all the possibilities, while it is a valid way of actually design and implementation, using property-based testing, you actually flip the switch and go the other way, where you generate all the inputs and then figure out where those values are failing. So those randomized trials, actually, you let the computer run those randomized trials and you come to it. And that's often led to a lot of Eureka moments from me where I've realized that, oh, this particular case is going to fail, this particular scenario does not work, or some assumption that I've made in the past is not going to fail. And often it has led to a lot of profound insights and aha moments for me where it might, I would say, yeah, Eureka, I figured out what the problem is and clearly anticipated a lot of problems before they actually go, for code that, before it actually goes into production. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Hannah. Hannah, so when you encounter a difficult situation, is it sleep, or is it talking to someone, or is it something else that you do?
It's usually a combination of talking to someone and just learning about their background and what they do. And even maybe just their personal journey, or even maybe their spiritual journey. But for me, it really helps when I drive. And unfortunately, I have not been driving that much with the current COVID-19 situation. But usually being stuck in the car in traffic, having an audiobook on or a podcast on, my mind just really gets working, and it works overtime when I'm doing something else, which is either driving or doing something that's, to me, is mindless, because I have been driving for a long time. And when I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I was driving cars up and down the Bay Area just to get out of the office. So they'd be like, hey, you want to go deliver this car and not do this boring work? I'm like, sure. And so I'd go take a bunch of cars to different places. So driving almost became a second nature to me. And it's funny, whenever I listen to Tony Robbins, he goes, if you have this really great thought in your mind, like, or in your brain, reaches this aha or eureka moment, he's like, I don't care what you're doing, pull over on the freeway and write it down. He's like, I don't care where you are, you need to pull over and write down whatever that idea is, because it's never going to come back in your mind ever again. You're never going to go back to that place, that aha moment or that eureka moment. Like, you might not be able to get that exact kind of idea or thought, or even if it's like this great business idea, or it's like this kind of revelation in your life, you're never going to get it back again. So he said, I don't care where you are on the highway, pull over, write it down somewhere, put it. I've been trying to do an audio like note in my phone with iPhone, and sometimes you shouldn't be touching your phone when you're driving. So it's usually when I'm in the car. So thank you, Aiming. That's a wonderful question.
Okay, so that ends the table topics. I'm going to hand the control back to the general evaluator.
Yay. Thank you very much. I believe that with this next portion of the meeting, I'm supposed to start with an evaluation of the evaluators and then the meeting itself, and then go through the duty masters. Is that correct? Yes, maybe?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we'll start with our evaluation of the evaluators, starting with Jose. Jose, you did a very good job evaluating me, but I don't think you were tough enough. You need to be meaner, more feedback, more cruelty. Other than that, excellent job. Let's see. And then secondly, we had Hannah, who was evaluating Waming. I thought you did a really good job pointing out the strong points of his talk. I think you also did a good job pointing out areas where you could use a little bit more improvement, with maybe a little more clarity on the slides in some places, things like that. All in all, a really good evaluation. Tao, you did a great job evaluating Martin. I think that you brought up some very good points. Personally, I thought Martin did a really good job making his speech clear, but like you, I have a background in engineering, so a lot of the terms he was throwing around I didn't think twice about, and I really should have thought about it more from the layperson's point of view. So I thought that was a really good point that you brought up in helping to make his speech a little bit more clear to the general audience. Let's see. Then the next portion is, I believe, to evaluate the meeting itself. The meeting started on time, although I was running a teeny bit late. The roles were assigned quite easily. As always, people pull together and put things just right. It looks like we are on time. And once again, people volunteering, doing a great job, pulling everything together last minute. So another great StartUp Speakers Toastmaster meeting. Let's see. I can't really think of anything that we need to really improve I think, like I said, we had some technical difficulties. We always seem to have some technical difficulties. That just has to do with Zoom itself, but I think we're doing a great job. And with that, I will then start to call. I believe I'm supposed to call on the duty masters, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Great. All right, then I will start to call on the duty masters. I will start with the timer. Wai-Ming, can you give me the timing?
Yes, Ms. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmaster, most welcome guest. In the prepared speeches, Georgie spoke for 7 minutes and 45 seconds. I spoke for 7 minutes and 38 seconds. Martin spoke for 5 minutes and 30 seconds. In the evaluation, Jose 3:26, Hannah 2:13, Tao 3 minutes. In the table topics, Gautam 1 minute and 18, Chandana 2 minutes, Tao 2 minutes 15, Jose 1 minute 40, Harun 2 minutes, and Hannah 1 minute and 35 seconds. That's the timing report.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And now we're going to transition to our, do we have our grammarian and our word master today, who is Harun?
Yes, I'm both. In terms of grammarian, I didn't really notice any grammatical mistakes, but I did. I like Georgie's use of the words layperson and lay public. That's a word that usually normally they. What I liked about it was that the word that usually comes to mind is layman, but in our enlightened times, layperson is the right word to use. In terms of word of the day, the people who used the word of the day were Hannah, myself, Wai-Ming, and Jose. And if in case I missed anybody else, I apologize.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't know if we had an ah counter today. Do we have an ah counter? Jose, can you please give us the ah counter report?
Yes, thank you, Ms. General Evaluator. For my account report, I have Georgie, I didn't hear any ahs. Harun, 6. Wai-Ming, 3. Martin, 7. Me, I had 4. Hannah, 3. Tao, 3. Gautam, 2. Chandana, 10. Back to you, those General Evaluator.
Okay, thank you very much. And we are supposed to call the joke master. I do have a joke in case Wai-Ming, but whatever. Would you prefer to share the joke or shall I?
You can do the joke. Then
Okay,
I can do it next time.
Okay, I have a joke. All right. So it has to do with Descartes, who people may remember. He's the guy who said, "I think, therefore I am." So after much thought, Descartes had his Eureka moment where he stated, "I think, therefore I am." Feeling absolute euphoria over his revelation, he wanted to share it with someone. Finding no one in the streets, he went into a bar and said to the first person he saw, "I think, therefore I am." Not understanding, the man said, "Well, that's great, but would you like to date my sister?" Looking at the man's sister, Descartes said with some disdain, "I think not," and immediately faded from existence with a tiny puff of smoke. Yay! All right. And with that, I believe I'm supposed to turn it over to our president. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, Hannah, take it away.
Thank you, Georgie, for really just taking over the general evaluation role. So thank you for doing that this morning. Usually people are reluctant to take that role, and so you really just stepped in and took over, so awesome. Do we have any closing comments for guests? I know, Tina, you're invited by a friend, and then Martin was one of our guest speakers today, but Tina, do you have any comments, closing comments?
No, not from me. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Awesome. And may we ask who invited you this morning?
Chandana.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, we of course know Chandana. Chandana knows everyone too.
Right from school.
And good morning, Chandana. We didn't see you. We didn't get to say hello to you too. So Chandana, do you have any comments as well?
Not really. I mean, I've been attending so many meetings now, and I think you guys do a really good job. The energy is super amazing since we meet at 7 in the morning, and it kind of keeps me going through the day. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Do we have anyone with announcements? Announcements this morning?
Just want to remind people that the officer training is taking place right now for the officers, and in theory, I believe we can get all 7 people trained up. We can get some freebie stuff from the thing. I don't know if we need more freebie stuff, but freebie stuff is always nice. So just to remind people, the training is coming to an end soon.
Awesome announcement, Georgie. Thank you. And we all are also entitled a freebie basket for doing an open house last month. So if you do want any specific items, they did run out of a few things, but if you want anything specific, let me know. Maybe I can request it. Still, all right. Did everybody vote? Let's see if we can announce some winners here. Oh, and then before we do that, actually, let's take a photo because I always forget. Everybody look your best, smile, do whatever you want to do. 1, 2. Okay. Awesome. Okay, let me make sure everybody voted here. If you have not voted yet, please do so. All right, I think we're just missing a couple people from voting. Okay, I'll give you guys 1 more minute. Looks like we have a preliminary.
I have an announcement.
All right, go ahead.
So, yeah, real fast, because I'm VP of Education, I have to review everybody's educational goals. I know we haven't been doing that, but I'm gonna do it. So I'll probably email everybody and get your. I'm gonna go through the database and let you know where you are. So yeah, in other clubs, they're very particular about your goals. They actually call you. Your name is not your name. It's actually your where you are in your goals because they're very goal driven. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do that anyways. I have to do a report. Yeah.
So strive to get those letters in back of your name. You know, that's your title. And just keep in mind, Jose might be calling you. So I think that's what Jose's telling you.
I mean, I have to
talk
keep
about your goal.
Yeah, educational goal thing. I haven't been doing it. I've been lax on that, but I gotta get it back, but get back on the horse. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So it looks like okay.
So while we're gathering up the last votes, maybe we should start organizing for next week.
Yes. Sorry, I was.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So does anybody want to be Toastmaster for next week?
You can take it up.
Okay, great. All right. And so maybe the Toastmaster would like to continue with getting the roles together. Or would you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And anybody would like to volunteer for the speaker roles?
I'll take a role. I want to speak.
A few.
Oh yeah, we have 3 speakers. So Harun, Jose, and Tao, right?
Harun, did you want to speak as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And in theory, I could be a backup speaker. But it doesn't sound like we need one, but I'll be a backup speaker. And Waming will be a backup speaker. So we have lots of backup speakers.
And for our awesome speakers, we need awesome evaluators. So anybody volunteering to be the evaluators? We need 3 speech evaluators.
I can be an evaluator.
Wyming, Georgie, and one more.
And we won.
Just a second. And didn't anybody else volunteer?
I'll be topic.
Gawam, did you?
Yep. Yeah,
So we got 3 evaluators.
Okay. Okay, and the rest of the roles we can fill out later, right?
Well, we should get the table topics together as well. Hannah?
Hannah. Okay.
All right, awesome, Chandana. Okay, I'm gonna announce some winners. So please drum roll, please. It was a tie in some categories. So drum roll for best table topics master. It was myself. It was not rigged. You can see the Google results. Best evaluator, drum roll, please. Best evaluator, drum roll. We have Tao. So Tao, congratulations on being the best evaluator, one of the best evaluators for this morning. Best speaker was a tie, but before we announce the tie, I also want to just thank Martin for stepping in as a guest speaker. So thank you so much, Martin. Usually we give you like a little, maybe a certificate or something that we hand over as just as a gift for being a guest speaker this morning. And then we'll also send you some information. So maybe you can keep doing speeches and become a member of our club as well. So we'll send you that information. But drum roll, please. There was a tie this morning for best speaker. Best speaker, it was between Wai-Ming and Georgie. So Wai-Ming and Georgie, congratulations on the tie for best speaker. All right. Well, with that, you guys have a good morning. And I will actually, I'm going to stop recording, but for officers, if you need to chat about anything, I will be on, but everybody else is welcome to continue their Wednesday morning and have a wonderful week. And we will see you next week, next Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, Hannah, I have a question regarding that the event that you were discussing. I'm not sure about that officer training.